to the first episode of the What Hustle channel, where we ride, we hustle, we repeat. What's going on, Wild family? Welcome back to the What Hustle channel, where we ride, we hustle, we repeat. Again, I am honored to have Alex back on the show. Those that watch, I think it was 2 episodes ago or last episode, I can't remember now because they're all running together. But there was a lot of controversy on that channel, and Alex's name was brought up multiple times. So I'm glad he's back on. Yeah. And what I want to do with today's episode, let me just read you guys what I have for the agenda. Now, as always, depending on what type of comments we get and what type of audience participation we get will depend on how this is going to go. But the idea for today is to talk about or start discussing the truth on battery capacity. And one of the questions I want to ask Alex is, do companies exaggerate their battery capacity? Next, I want to talk about range anxiety. Is it something real, something perceived, or is it something that is brought upon based on bad information? Next, I want to talk about the difference between a real world testing versus what manufacturers actually do when they test these bikes and batteries. And then lastly, I want to talk about the different types of volts, right? 48 volt, 52 volt, 60, 72, 80, even, on the spectrum, 36 up to, 72 plus, right? So without further ado, Alex, do us a favor, introduce yourself again for those that don't know who you are.
Thanks, Fernando. Thanks for having me here. My name is Alex. I am just a random Joe Schmo who likes tinkering with e-bikes, and I happen to keep my camera rolling while doing it. I throw the videos up on YouTube, and you guys seem to watch it. I still don't know why, but yeah, that's what I do.
It is interesting because YouTube is unique in my opinion, right? There's so many channels, so many creators out there, and the fact that people actually watch my channel, like you said, watch your channel, it is amazing to me. It is something that I'm like, wow, people are actually interested in what I'm producing. But in terms for you as a fan, I can tell you I watch because number one, I love e-bikes, so that's one component. But I specifically watch your channel because of how you present the bike. And then more importantly, each individual reviewer has a little unique touch that they do to each video, which is what makes it very interesting. But let's get right into it, Alex. Let's talk about, I know you jumped in off and on during the last podcast in which we were talking about batteries. And right off the bat, there was some misconception as to what type of testing do you actually do when you test a battery. Can you go into that, please?
Sure. So the test I do, I would say from the perspective of a quote unquote reviewer, it's probably just the most practical test. And in the sense of what the customer might get for watt hour capacity out of the battery as it's currently put together, it's also the most practical test. So I just take the positive and negative leads that are coming out of the battery pack and discharge the battery at usually 600 watts, sometimes 300 if it's a smaller battery. I just want to see if there's a difference. Sometimes there is. And that's it. And it doesn't test the individual cells in the battery because those could be all over the place depending on so many different factors. It doesn't test the resistance of the actual pack. It doesn't test the heat or anything like that. It's just basic watt hours at a certain wattage discharge rate, and that's pretty much it. And ultimately, I just want to see what the capacity of a battery is. That's pretty much it. That's all I'm testing.
So, let, before we go into that, also, I just want to clarify a couple of things because I had a bunch of questions. Right?
Mhm.
What's the difference, or is there a difference? Which one's more important? Is it voltage, amp hours? What can you go into? Do you is there one more important than the other?
I don't know if that's the right word to use. I mean, it's all the same. It's like saying which side of a triangle is more important. Like you need all of them to kind of make the thing go. Um, but there's voltage, which is just the how much pressure the electricity has. Then there's current, which is just the volume. I think the analogy people use is usually like a garden hose. So like how much pressure the garden hose has, how wide the garden hose is, and that'll determine how much power is coming out of that garden hose. That's pretty much it.
So yeah, because one of the things and in that question I asked, I don't, and I agree. I don't think there's one more important than the other, and I don't really, what I do think does matter are all the other stuff. Like for example, a 48 volt versus let's say a 48 volt 20 amp hour battery and a 72 20 amp hour battery. Which one would you say will give you more range if all things are equal?
48 volt 20 amp hour or a 72 volt 20 amp hour.
Yeah.
Probably the 72 volt because it has overall more cells. And so let's say the current is the same for both batteries. It would just be they'd be working less. My guess, I guess.
No, and I that's what I learned.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of battery makers,
Mm.
mainly because I wanted, I like to add extra batteries to my bike,
Mm.
or swap out the stock batteries, especially when a lot of these Chinese brands, you don't know what kind of battery you're actually getting, right?
But they're
Uh,
telling you, Fernando, they're telling you. It says on the label exactly what it is. What do you mean you don't know? It
yeah,
says on the website.
we're gonna go into that in a second, but so I asked a lot of actual battery makers like Kevin, like the guys over there at Power Lithium, and you know, and what you said is 1000% correct. For what I've learned is the reason why a 72 volt 20 amp hour battery will give you more range is because that battery is just more efficient than a 48 volt battery. Now, again, everything needs to be equal. And the reason I say that is because I have, and I've done some testing on, and for example, my R6, my Victrip R6, which is a very tiny, very light 48 volt e-bike that has 40 amp hours. I get more range on that bike than I would if I on my 52 volt 40 amp hour I'm trying to blank the move cam, because the
Mhm.
move cam is twice the weight, not twice, but
Yeah.
much more. It's much heavier. It also has two motors versus the R6 has one motor. So, anyways, everything has to be equal to get the extra range. But to that point, the more votes you have, the more efficient the battery is going to be. So you're going to get more range. So let's go back to
Generally speaking, yeah, there's
right.
some differences in that, but yeah, generally speaking.
So in terms of what you just mentioned, right? Because the topic of this video or this podcast is: are e-bike companies lying? Are they misleading? How would you characterize what they're advertising?
Okay. Yeah, and by the way, to the viewers out there, I got these questions in advance so I can kind of think about them for a little bit. And I think the answer for that is I want to take a step back and think about where do the e-bike companies themselves get the batteries from, because they might, like the company itself, they don't produce the battery. Someone else produces the battery, and they give that company, the e-bike company, the battery. And and then on top of that, where does the battery manufacturer get their cells? Because they might be buying cells and they think it's something, but it might be something different than what they expect. So if you kind of go down the chain, the manufacturing chain, um, who knows? The probability of everyone being 100% honest is probably zero. You know what I mean? So there could be lots of instances where, let's say, a battery manufacturer gets a battery, they check it, and maybe they're dishonest, who knows, and they send it to the company, and they put a label on it that the company's happy with, but little does the company know it's something totally different. So it could be multiple steps. And I don't know if this is true or not, I have to fact check it, but I've even heard stories of there being battery cells themselves filled with sand, or just not like nonsense, or just garbage, just trash battery cells that are recycled. They take them out of a giant pack, they grind down the welds, then they just rewrap them with something else. Funny story, Matt over at Spark Cycle Works, he's pretty good with checking batteries that come in, and he was checking one battery. He got this battery years ago. He was like, "What is happening? Like, this battery is not giving me any range whatsoever." He took it apart, and guess what he found? A sandbag.
Really?
Told me he found a sandbag in the battery pack. So it's the Wild West out there, man. And you just got to check these things, and that's why I started checking just basic stuff, just capacity testing. Like, let's see what this battery actually has. And it's not looking good. I'll tell you that much. I've got some videos coming out soon. It's not looking good, man.
Yeah, no, like I mentioned, I started to. I personally, I'm not checking these batteries. I'm not that tech savvy, but I'm sending batteries to people that actually do. And what they're like, I'm going to give you an example. Actually, you brought up an example. I believe you brought up an example of a company that sent you a battery. You tested it. It wasn't what they said it was. And then they wanted you to take down the video. Am I correct? Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, so I didn't even test it. All I did, I actually took it apart. I took it apart. I took the shell apart. I took off the wrapping on the battery so I can count all the cells. And if the cells are a standardized capacity and you count how many there are, you can figure out what the specs of that battery pack should be based on the physical size and the count of the cells. And it was different from what was advertised. It was way off. And yeah, that was a whole debacle. People were pissed off about that. People were really mad. They were, and I'm not going to throw out accusations as to if there's dishonesty or who's dishonest, because again, there's the manufacturer of the battery pack could be dishonest, or the company could be dishonest. Who knows?
And you're not the first one that happened to, because I was watching a video, and I'm going to throw out the company name. It was APAS, that Scott Hardesty and Matt actually like tested, and it wasn't even close. They brought it. Oh no, I'm sorry. It wasn't. I don't know if it was that the battery didn't meet the specs, but
From what I remember, I think it was the wrong kind of cell. But besides that, I can't remember.
Yeah, and they were claiming that the batteries were UL certified, and they weren't. Now, having mentioned US certified, let me give some shout outs here real quick. Electric Adventure, my brother's on, and you got Walter, which I think Walter, remind me, you're the one that won the A-Pass bike, right? From Mr. Central Driver. But he's mentioning, this is interesting. This is, he's saying that let me backtrack. I had talked about how a lot of companies are now starting to produce 60 volt, 30 amp hour batteries, and they're selling these bikes super cheap. The T8 is the one that comes to mind. F6 is another bike that's a 60 volt, 30 amp hour bike that's dirt cheap. But what he's mentioning is that a lot of these Chinese companies have a lot of these batteries and they're trying to offload them because he believes that soon, if the battery is not US certified, they're not going to be able to ship it to the US. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know, man. I think, and I could be wrong. I'm just kind of spitballing here. If it's being shipped in as a battery pack that's kind of ready for an e-bike, I'm not sure what the standards are going to be by law. I don't know if it's going to be federal law or state law. I also don't know if people can just like if there's going to be any restrictions for cells themselves. I don't see why there would be. I don't know, man. That's tough to. It's kind of tough. Like I said, it's tough to police all of that because you have to check. So let's say a company does make a battery that's they claim UL certified. Maybe there's some kind of database you can cross reference, but then you'd
There
have
is.
to and then you'd have to open these batteries up to see if at random, probably like random quality control tests, if they're actually what they claim, because maybe most of them are up to spec, but some of them are sneaking through. So who knows, man? I mean, I know you're former law enforcement, and with every law, it's a law on paper until it's enforced. Then it's actually a law. Like you have to enforce it. You have to do checks. Otherwise, it's just it's a recommendation. So
I want number one. I don't see how they can actually. Uh, um, they don't have enough people to enforce. Let's say there is a ban and you can't ship these batteries, or you can't ship an e-bike because they just reclassifying or whatever the case is. Very difficult to enforce. We receive, I mean, when I say we receive contraband containers in the billions, we receive contraband containers in the billions, right? You see knockoff. I mean, you go to any major city, New York, San Francisco, Miami, and you go to their swap shops or you go to their Chinatown, and everything being sold there is being shipped in containers, and 99.9% of all that stuff is illegal. So very difficult to enforce. I don't know how it's going to apply. The same thing with some of these e-bike laws that are being passed. I can't see, and we'll touch on some of the new stuff because I got some updated news. But very difficult for law enforcement to enforce a law that it's currently in place. Like, for example, in Florida and most parts of the U.S., the maximum bike is 750 watt bike is like the maximum, right, or the standard. But a cop can't test that unless he has a dyno and takes another. He can't test it.
Let me throw another wrench in that, because let's say you're riding around and your battery is full, completely full. Your wattage at full battery is going to be very different at 50% battery or 25%. And so it's tough, man. It's tough to test all these things.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, well, let me not go into the laws yet, because I want to stick to some of these questions related to the manufacturer. Hold on. Let me bring this back up here. Where was that? Because I can't even remember where I was last. So, and not I don't know if you know the answer to this, but it seems to me that some of when a company, let's say for example, a company says it's a 40 amp hour battery. I have found, and tell me if you found the same, that sometimes when you test these batteries, they're hardly ever 40 amps. They may be 38.2, and they're just like rounding up. Are you finding that?
Well, when a cell manufacturer tests the battery, they have very strict standards. I think they discharge it at 0.2 C or something like that. It's a very slow trickle discharge. at specific temperatures, and it stresses the battery out as least as possible, right? And when you do that, you're going to get the most possible capacity from that battery. And that's just one battery cell, because I think Jay mentioned in the last stream there's grade B cells which might not be up to the manufacturer standards. Maybe they're not the capacity they should be, and they chuck them into the grade B cell. But, that's not to say that every single cell in your battery pack is up to spec of what it should be. Number one. Number two, when you're actually using your battery, you're using it potentially at a much higher discharge rate, which is going to cause heat. It's going to stress the battery, and now you're not going to have the same capacity that's advertised. So the short answer is it depends.
Now, do you well, how do I phrase this question? Because I don't want to single out a specific company, and let's justify. Do you know of a specific company that's really notorious about misleading? I don't want to say misleading either. What notorious of advertising something, and almost all of it's not even close.
No, there's a few, I would say, and this is just, I might take this back later. Um, like the no name brands that just pop up out of nowhere that you've never seen before, that make insane claims. So for example, you'll go on Amazon and you'll see this like 6,000 watt e-bike,
Yeah.
$15.99. Okay. And then you see the battery is like 32 amp hour, 60 volt. You're like, okay, buddy, sure. Like if that were true, they'd be selling it at a loss, if it were actually true. So I would say start with those first, like the obvious ones, and then from there, I don't really know of any. I don't know, man. I still just started doing the battery testing, so I'm still building kind of the database. Um, but it's like some companies are good, some companies, it's kind of worrying.
It is, and the only one that comes to my mind, and I've already mentioned them, but I'm not trying to single them out, is APAS, right? They're everyone that has done a test on their batteries, even on if you look at Kyle over at Area 13,
Mhm.
When he puts them on the dyno, it's not even close of what they're producing, or what they're
What they
claiming.
advertise. Okay.
What
Yeah.
they're advertising. I mean, it is pretty bad. It says here, Mickey Mouse specs. Josh over from Fat Guy Tinkering just started watching. I was talking to Kevin from Northeast Battery Solutions, and we're talking about how a lot of companies just lie about the actual battery capacity. Yeah, that's the theme of the show, because we agree. I'm finding that out. Alex I watched Alex on some of his videos, and I know he's has noticed the same thing. But it's not just on the battery; it's on their. And we'll talk about range in a second. But it's not just about the battery, but the power output of the bike.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, in terms of, let's talk about range now. In terms of what you see. Tell me, when you see a bike advertising saying that it can get 80 miles, how close or how far off do you think they are?
Oh man. Well, the rule of thumb is just divide it in half. That's usually a good rule of thumb. But even then, dude, I don't know, man. I just ignore that number altogether. I think overall, you could probably take, if you want to just keep it simple, take the weight of the bike, and then take honestly, you can't even do that because the claimed output could be different, and then the claimed capacity could be different. Yeah, it's just a ballpark, man. I don't even pay attention to those numbers. I would say probably divide it in half and just go from there.
Yeah, what I like to do, and let me know if you agree with this or not, or if you experimented with this or not. What I find, based on my riding style is always to go faster than 25 miles an hour. Pretty much my average speed is usually around 20 between 20
Careful now,
and
Fernando. You're gonna start breaking the law, man. 28
yeah,
miles an
yeah.
hour. Careful now.
So, but that's my riding style. But what I've found out with all the range tests that I've done, that whatever the amp hours are, I usually get 1 mile for every amp hour. So if it's a 30 amp hour battery and I'm riding in at 20, 25 miles an hour, I'm going to get 30 miles, or I'm going to be very close to 30 miles. I'm not getting if they're claiming 80, I'm not getting 80, but I'm also not that far off and by that ratio, right? 1 mile for every amp hour. What are you finding?
Oh man, I mean, I've heard of that rating before. I think I see it in the comments also. I think that's not a bad rating. That's a pretty good like standard to start with. But it all depends, man. There's so many variables. Like even for me, like I'll do a range test, and in my neck of the woods, it's gonna sound painful for you when you hear it. It was like 30, 40 degrees, and that's gonna drop your range by like 25%. And then there's heat, and there's so many different factors, but maybe that's probably a good place to start. Just for like if you're just shopping around, you're trying to figure out which bike to get. And if the reviewer gets that range, it's probably a good place to start.
No, I agree with that. James writes, I have a Testway X5 and I doubt the battery specs are accurate, but it exceeds the range I expected. I went 100 kilometers electric only, and I was at 65% battery. Yeah, I have that Testway X5. I don't test the battery, so I'm not going to say whether or not it has the actual amp hours that they claim. But I will say this, that the bike does have very, very good range. Even with my riding style, it does a phenomenal job. It's definitely a long range e-bike. So let me see what else I have in terms of. So for because this is a good question. I got a question from one of my subscribers, and he asked me, should reviewers be required to do battery discharge test?
Well,
what
required? No. Yeah, I would say if the reviewer is confident in what they're doing, I don't see why not. I'm discharging them at a pretty safe lower level, especially for the bigger ones. 600 watts it's pretty much nothing for some of the bigger batteries. And bonus points, it does help heat my house in the winter, so that's good because it pretty much acts like a giant heater. I mean, if more reviewers want to do it, that would be amazing. That would be great. If they have their standardized way, I have my standardized way, and hey, maybe we'll all use the same tool. That would be great. As long as they're very safe and they know what they're doing, because there's risks in terms of you know taking things apart, putting them back together, and it's simple things like when you could be putting something back together and you might compress a wire that's high voltage, and now you might have a short. Simple things like that. So as long as the reviewer is confident, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Here's Electric Adventure, kind of agrees or posted something similar to that. He writes as 1 point that he finds that it's 1.5 miles per amp hour. I kind of agree with that. Josh, Fat Guy Tinkering, oops, he beat me to it. So Josh, right on there if you agree, 1.5 miles per amp hour. If that's what you meant, that he beat you to it. I'm interested to know, because I've been using one for me, but I know, Josh, I know you added an extra battery to your Filoto Falcon, and you got a lot of range on the. Remind me, I think it was like 80 miles for a total 40 amp hours, right? If you can, put in the comments, remind me what the distance was and what was your average speed, and if you're in a hilly area or not. So let me ask you, so one of the questions that I had, that I mentioned in the beginning, that I want to kind of address is range anxiety, right? Is that something that the average consumer gets because of the perception that they're getting from reviewers or from the from e-bike companies, or is that something like you really need to have it if you need to go at a distance, you have a bike that only has 10 amp hour 10 amp hour battery?
It's probably both. So, when you have a website that says you get 1,000 miles of range on one battery, and someone buys that expecting that that's what they're going to get, and they don't get anything close to it, now you get anxiety, right? It's like, I don't know what's what. I don't know if this battery is what it says it is. And then as far as reviewers, you mentioned something about I think Josh, you mentioned living in hilly areas. Everyone has their own different subjective opinion as to what hilly might mean, or how heavy they are, or how fast they're going, how hard they're accelerating. So there's endless factors as to how much range you'll actually get, uh, based on person to person. So someone like like you mentioned, you're 150 pounds. You go much faster on your mini goat than I do, right? And that's a different experience completely than what it. We each have a very different experience, and so range is like that. At least, with this battery testing that I'm doing, at least people will know, like, okay, here's just another data point. Here's some evidence as to what the capacity could probably be. And then they can compare that with other bikes that have similar capacities and then kind of make up their mind.
Yeah, let me so Josh writes, because I asked him about what kind of range he got on his Falcon. He got 91 miles on rough and flat terrain. He was riding a pedal assist 2, which is at 18 miles an hour, not stopping and starting, which will kill the battery. I agree with that. And then and to beat to the punch is what you said. Just cut the advertised range in half. Have you looked
Let's take a look. Let's actually talk about the Floto Falcon.
Yeah.
Let me look at the specs. So, because I have a personal, story also, and this is kind of where things kind of, the subjective experience really plays a big factor. So it's a 60-volt battery, 1920 watt hours. One second. So 1920 watt hours, and then he said at pedal assist 2.
Yeah.
And what speed was that?
18 miles an hour.
18 miles an hour, and he got 190 miles, something like that.
No, 90 miles, 91 miles, 91 miles.
91 miles.
Now he added a second battery to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that, I would say, and I'll give my experience to that. That seems about right, honestly. And here's what I mean by people can kind of listen to that, do the math, listen to me and my experience, do the math, and kind of figure out what range they'll get. My very first YouTube video on e-bikes on my channel, you guys can check it out. I did not take it down. I filmed a range test on my aerial rider Kepler, right? I still have PTSD to this day. I swear my ass hurts. I think it still hurts. Just sitting there pedaling 15 miles an hour. I think pedal assist 1. I was using leg power, but that battery, it's 52 volts, 20 amp hours. So it's about 1,000 watt hours, somewhere on there. And I got 60 miles. I was probably using a little bit more leg power. I was going a little bit slower. So that math kind of matches up. And so I think if people, and it sucks that people have to do this, they have to do so much research as to get down to the bottom of, well, how far will I actually go with a certain battery? You have to listen to what people say and then kind of make up your own mind.
I think, right. I think you have to not just make up your mind, but you really have to do your own testing on your riding style. Because I'll use myself as an example. I would never ride a bike, 15 miles an hour. For that, I get on my analog bike that I can ride forever at 15 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't test it that way. That's why when I test my bikes, and I'm clear when I tell people, hey, I give my average speed for that ride, what my top speed is as well, and show what my riding style is. Because I got an e-bike for a reason, and the reason I got an e-bike is I want to go faster, further, without having to kill myself. So. But you really need to test it. And the reason I say that, because I do 3 separate range tests and I get 3 separate distances, right? When I ride it, when I'm dashing, it's one range. When I'm riding the bike carrying heavy loads, that's another range. And when I ride the bike just for leisure, that's another range. So you really have to experiment with the bike, because if you don't do that, you're not going to know or not have a clear idea, because you can watch me ride it at 150 pounds, watch like Scott, who's 200 and something pounds, or even Tim, I think Tim's like 6'2", 200 and something pounds as well. In California, where there's nothing but hills.
I think he might take offense to that. I want to say he's 240 something.
Yeah, he's a big dude. He's a big, and lives in a very hilly area. So his range is going to be way different than mine, right? So I agree. You really need to, everyone, when they get a bike, number one, as you're shopping around, just keep in mind what we just mentioned. If most people on here agree that you're going to get between 1 and 1.5 miles for every amp hour. So if it's 20 amp hours and you're riding it like conservatively, you're going to get at least 20 miles. But if you just use only throttle and you're a big dude and you live in a very hilly area, you're not getting 20 miles in a 20 amp hour battery. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of because this is another question that I've gotten a lot of, and that is, and this is, the answer is going to vary. It's going to depend on what you need it for. But there's a few bikes now, the Aniokis, the Ihoras, that have 60, 70, 80 amp hour batteries, right? And on bikes that either 52 volt, 60 volt, or 72 volt, right? Do you think that the average rider actually needs a battery that big, or what's your process? What's your thought on that? Because it does get expensive when you buy a bike with that big of a battery.
Yeah. The short answer is no. I don't think the average rider needs that big of a battery. It's definitely like a special case. So, for example, let's say you're door dashing and you want to be out there all day and going fast, and you're a bigger guy. You're gonna need more battery. But it's those are heavy batteries and they're expensive too. So it's not for everyone. It makes your bike very heavy as well. So it's definitely not for everyone. But I do like that you just have almost no anxiety when you ride those things. You just feel like you can go and explore, kind of like you're a kid on a regular bike. You just get out there and explore, and you feel like you can go anywhere. And that's an awesome feeling. Just completely erasing range anxiety is such a great experience.
That's where I lean to. When somebody asks me about what type of bike they get and what type of battery size should they get, my first question is, how passionate are you about riding and exploring, and what are you going to use the bike for? Because again, if you are a dasher, in using it to try to make some money on it, you're going to need a big battery. You're definitely going to need a big battery. Yeah. Or if you are commuting and your commute is far, then you're going to need a big battery. But the average person that's just going to go out on a Sunday ride, most people are not going to ride for 2 hours, and they're not going to ride more than 15, maybe 20 miles. And no, you don't need to spend the money on an 80 amp hour bike. And more importantly, you probably don't want a bike that's that big and heavy.
Yeah,
because it's
it's like it's kind of like I like the analogy of it's like trying to hang a picture with a sledgehammer. Like you guys,
yeah.
it's like it's cumbersome at that point. It gets in the way. Fernando, for you, what's your sweet spot in terms of, let's say you're just gonna go out for a ride, exploring with some friends, just casual kind of leisure ride. How long do you want to be out there? How long do you want to ride, and how many miles maybe?
So for me, now I'm in Florida, so everything's just too spread out. So for me, and I do this on a regular basis, it's a minimum of 50 miles.
Oh wow,
That,
okay,
yeah, it's a minimum.
that's a big ride, man.
Yeah, and it's a big ride.
Yeah.
So like I'll give you a couple of examples. Like recently, and these videos already came out. Like I rode from here to Vizcaya, which is a museum here that I've lived here forever, never went to. It's a beautiful museum. It's a mansion. It used to be owned by this guy named a very rich guy back in the early 1900s who built this estate. And when he died, the estate was given to the county and they turned it into a museum. That is from my house to that museum, it's about a 27-mile ride. So, if I'm just going straight there and back, I'm already over 52 miles. So, and so that's one ride. If I want to go to South Beach is about 25 to 30 miles from here. Even going to Fort Lauderdale, to the beach in Fort Lauderdale and riding around Fort Lauderdale and back, for me, that's a 25-mile ride.
Yeah.
So hence why all my bikes, the ones that I keep, I need that bike to give me at least 40 miles. Otherwise, the bike's not useful for me.
Yeah.
So
And
the
what speed are you typically going for those rides? You said about 25, somewhere on there?
25 miles an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So my average speed between, when you average it out, and I'm doing a lot of stop and going, it's probably around 20 miles. But
Yeah.
I'm moving when I can, and traffic permits. I'm doing 25 to 30 miles an hour, easy. And that's the speed that I like to ride on, because again, even though we have a lot of bike lanes, I don't want to be going 10 miles an hour even in the bike lane, because I don't want to get hit from the rear, right? I don't want a distracted driver veering off into the bike lane and running me over because I'm doing 10 miles an hour. So
yeah.
So for me, that's a safety issue. But that's a good question. And again, it goes back to what I said. It depends on the individual and their needs. Because if you live in New York City, you can get away with a 15 amp hour bike because everything is within 1 or 2 miles from your house.
Yeah. I would say, dude, if I lived in New York City, I would just get one of those scooters that's foldable, and I could just bring it inside. Let's say you're working in an office. I would just bring it inside an office. That would be great. And I think they limit the speed limit. I don't know if they enforce it on the bike lanes or in the bike lanes. What is it, 15 miles an hour?
15 miles an hour.
I would just take one of those foldable scooters and call it a day. It's not going to get stolen because it's sitting right next to you in the office. That'd probably be a good idea.
I agree with you. In fact, JB360, who he lives in one of the boroughs but works in the city, that's his mode of transportation is a scooter.
Yeah.
So you're in even places like Chicago that has, it's very bike friendly, but there's just so many people. A scooter is more conducive. But again, going on an e-bike, if you're in a big city like that, if you want to have an e-bike, you don't need 80 amp hours because you're not going that far.
That'd be too much. And then you could just take the charger with you wherever you're going, just charge up for a bit.
Yeah, let's go over. Let me see what's because I'm way behind on some of these some of the questions and what people are commenting here. E-bike G Testway X7 Pro takes away all the range anxiety. Yeah, 100%. I'm telling you, those bikes, those Testway, Ihora, Anioki, the Walkie, those you get one of those bikes and you don't have to worry about range at all.
It's even though it might be too much, like from a technical standpoint, it's such a great feeling knowing that you can go anywhere and not have a care in the world. It's awesome.
Yeah. You guys are so right. I think we owe it to our viewers to test probably properly and to let them know the range we're getting and give them the riding conditions. Yeah, that's 100%, man. And for the most part, everybody that I talk to and everybody I watch, that's what they do. You know, they give which let me ask you this question, because I got into a big debate over this question here.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, and Jay's not on here. I hope he goes on here, but so here's the debate that I got into it with Jay. And that is, can a reviewer, can someone review a bike when they only ride it once, maybe twice? Meaning, can they give an honest overall performance opinion on the bike when you only ride it once? What's your thought on that?
Okay, you said one key word on there, which is opinion. You can say opinions about anything. So what I do with my tests, my reviews, is I do specific performance tests. So I do 2 hill climbs. I do a 0 to 20. If it's fast enough, I'll throw a 0 to 30 in, and I'll do a top speed test. And I do all of that within 10 miles. And
Right.
on top of that, the word review could mean anything for anyone. There's a guy out, his channel name is Papa Blue Shirt. He has, I
Yeah.
think, a Filoto.
Yeah.
He reviews the bike. He puts like a million miles on that bike. If there's one guy that's definitely lives up to the name of a reviewer, that's definitely him. But the word review, that's also, it could be anything. And on
But
top of that,
let me change the question,
sure.
because the question was, can, and it's not really review. The question or the debate was, can I say that this is a good product, or can I say that bike A is better than bike B when you only ride it once?
A general statement like that, you can say it, but is it true? Maybe not. It might not be true, even if you say it. And the way you word it has to matter. So, for example, you could say, "Oh, this bike is lightweight. If you're looking for something that's foldable and lightweight, bring it up the stairs. This might be a good option." That's technically not false,
Right.
because it's a lightweight bike. It's foldable. That makes sense, right? But if you're gonna say, "Oh, like this bike is gonna hold up for a long time," you don't know that.
Right.
You don't know that. Fernando, you would know that, but I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
You ride your bikes for a long time.
I do now, and again, and the question was, my spiel was, you can say this bike goes up this hill at 20 miles an hour, or it can go up a 30% incline. You can say that. You can say that this bike's top speed is 35 miles an hour when you did that actual review.
Mhm.
But you can't say that this is like, because the issue was that the person rode or said that a bike like the Filoto Falcon was a phenomenal bike, but they only had it for one day. So how can you say that's a phenomenal bike? I don't think you could.
Yeah, so this is getting into back to our first conversation, why I made my channel in the first place, and I do things the way I do. There's objective facts and data based on, especially the most important part about a test is that you do it the same way every time.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, let's say you're taking your weight every morning, it could be off, but if you use the same scale every day, it doesn't matter because the change is going to be the same. So you have the data and the facts and the objective information. Everything else is an opinion. And I think as a viewer, we have to put a little bit of responsibility on the viewers to understand that, like, a lot of these things are opinions. So if I say something is, "Oh, that's great," like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Um, it's not always. I'm gonna again put some pressure on the viewers and the people looking at these commercials. Really, what they are is like to think a little bit as to what this person's saying and to decipher what's true and what's not, what's an opinion, what's fact. And I think it's on them to also see lots of different videos. So let's say you're looking to buy the Victrip bike. It's like, I'm not just going to watch Fernando's video. I'm going to watch this person's video, this person's video. And then I'll have kind of a good idea of what this bike is, or at least what I think is a good idea.
Yeah, here's having said that, because um, do you think, uh, as a reviewer, is how do I phrase this question? Because this was another part of the debate, right? I find that a lot of reviewers are super positive about every bike to review, which I'm okay with. You can be positive about the bike, but should the reviewer disclose certain facts, like, for example, did they get the bike? Are they getting paid for the review? Or are they receiving the bike? Or do a comparison of this bike. Let's say it's a budget e-bike and it's a moped style e-bike. They can say, how would they? Let me backtrack. Let me just answer that, because most reviewers are going to be very positive about the bike, or at least that's my opinion. Let's start there.
Mm. I would say, it's less about the reviewer doing things and more about the viewer assuming that this person has gotten paid and did receive the bike for free. If I just make that assumption right off the bat, I'm already in an advantage, because like I know I'm gonna be more careful as to what I think about this bike and what this person says about it if I already start with that opinion, with that view. I think it's great if a reviewer says, "Hey, they sent me this bike to test out." That's fine.
Yeah.
Um, it matters less when you. So, for example, if you are a reviewer who's getting 20 bikes a month, it's not a valuable thing to get a bike. And so, if it's your first bike that you're getting as a reviewer, you're like, "Oh my god, this company is sending me this $1,500 bike. This is amazing." Like you're so happy. But if you're getting 20 of them per month, it's not really worth anything. And the likelihood that you'll be biased, is my guess, is going to be less, because you have 20 bucks this month, 20 bucks next month. And so there's that factor also. But I would say just assume the person is getting the bike for free. Number one,
No, I
right off the bat.
agree, and I don't think it's a problem that a reviewer is positive about the bike, right? Um, uh, because, and I agree with you, it's up to the viewer to assess what they're watching and say, okay, I'm looking, if when I look at a bike and I want to buy a bike, I'm looking, what are my needs? And is this reviewer answering the questions that I have about my needs, regardless if they're positive or not, right? Because
Yeah,
a lot of it's opinion and it's a matter of preference. I'm going to give you an
that's it.
example. Uh,
100%.
I'll give you an example. I don't like thumb throttles. Some people love them. So when
Oh, Fernando, we can't be friends anymore. Oh my god.
yeah, I
You
am not
don't.
a. I'd rather have a twist throttle, right? Rather reference a thumb throttle. Scott's the opposite. Scott loves that thumb throttle. He hates half twist throttles.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that you're not going to like it. Just like with seats, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Magician Alpha. I'll use Scott again because he just reviewed it again. He hates that seat. I loved it. So
Mm.
there's certain things that it's going to be an opinion. You guys need to really just understand that it's an opinion. Now, what's not going to be an opinion is, can that bike go up an incline that's 30% incline? That's not an opinion. How
Yeah.
fast does the bike go? That's
Yep.
not an opinion,
Yep.
right?
100%. And I
But when
think I know what you mean by being positive. Let's say, for example, you'll watch one reviewer, and this also has to do with how many bikes they're reviewed and what year is it. Meaning, 2 years ago, a 40-mile-an-hour bike was very fast. People
yeah,
were that would be a serious speed back then. and the reactions that people would have when they're on camera recording themselves was epic. It was like, oh my god, this is I just soiled myself. I went 40 miles an hour. Oh my god. Now that same 40-mile-an-hour bike is, it's good. 40 miles an hour is good. Like I went like 67 on a bike the other day. That was insane. That was crazy. But obviously the speeds are very different, and you kind of have to gauge, like, okay, what speed are they going? Let's see how all the reviewers react when they're going at this speed. Maybe only this guy is like overly enthusiastic for God knows what reason. So you have to kind of take that into consideration also.
And then that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
You'll see some people like, oh my God, this. I'll go back to the Filoto Falcon.
yeah,
Uh, I made the mistake before they sent me that bike to watch a bunch of reviews on it, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is like the Wired Scout. It's so powerful."
mm,
And when I got it, I was like, "Whoa! Either my bike is not working properly, or this bike has no power." And James just mentioned one thing I have found is my perception of acceleration, which is what I just talked about on e-bikes and e-scooters, is very different than every reviewer. I find that they feel like acceleration is very quick, and I have the opposite feeling. So I agree, and that's what I'm talking about. If you get on, and I'll go back to the Floto Falcon because we're talking about it. If you take that bike and you're at a dead stop and then you hit that throttle and go from 0 to 20, that bike is horrible. Because if you get on the Wired Scout, the Magician Alpha, the Motor Go, the Mini Go, and you do that same test, if you think you got power with that Filoto Falcon, you're gonna be like peeing your pants when you get on those other bikes, because
yeah.
that's what real torque is, not what the Filoto Falcon has.
And again, getting back to what we said, let's say there's a reviewer, and first they review the Filoto Falcon, and it's their very first e-bike they reviewed. Their reaction, my guess, is going to be super positive. Let's say if there's a number scale, we can give it like 9 out of 10. And then they get on something that's way faster, they're still going to give the same reaction. And the reviewer is going to think, wow, this person is excited about both bikes. They must have similar power. But it's just because of the order that they reviewed the bikes in, it makes it seem like that. Fernando, I'm going to give you a quote that you're going to love. I think this guy, he was an economist. His name is Thomas Sowell. Have you heard of him?
No, I don't think so.
But he has a couple great quotes. One of them, I think, is an answer to if someone says something is good or bad, right? Or mostly regarding policy. So his questions that he asks is, number one, compared to what, right? So because you have to compare it. Compared to
Yeah, that's
what?
right.
Um, the last thing he said about it is, what hard evidence do you have? And that's what we talked about. The middle one is, at what cost? I think that's less relevant to what we're talking about, but the first two especially. So, like, okay, this thing is fast, but compared to what?
But what?
Compared to my first e-bike I reviewed, or a 67-mile-an-hour King Goat.
Right,
And then what's your hard evidence?
right. No, that's phenomenal. Um, let me give you a couple of more questions, and let's talk about brands. Right? Do you feel that a lot of bikes are just rebranded? A lot of these, because they use similar parts, they look the same, most of them feel the same. Are most bikes just rebranded factory models? What do you think?
Oh, 100%. 1,000%. And even if the bikes themselves, they're all going to have differences, small differences. Like, for example, I have in my possession the Huronge. I probably mispronounced it. Bruce is going to kill me for that one. The Huronge X1 Spark. It's a little electric dirt bike, and then the A-Pass Amp S1. If you look these bikes up, they look identical. They're pretty much are identical. Besides, I think the turn signals and the lights, it's pretty much the same bike. Um, yeah, I tested both batteries. The batteries are pretty much the same, or more or less the same. The power's the same. They're the same bike. And so, they're all these parts are pretty much used and reused and rotated around, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing because some parts are good. Like if it's a good, like for example, the Bafang motor that's on the Alpha and the Bafang system that's on the Alpha. Like Fernando, if they use that system on more bikes, I'd be a happy camper. I'd be really
Oh,
happy.
you and me both.
Like it's not a bad thing that parts are reused, but yeah, to answer your question, it is reused a lot of parts.
Yeah, and so no, I 100% agree. I mean, I think some of them are the same. They even may be the same company. Like
Yeah.
there's like for example, Ihora and Anioki. I I don't know if they're the same company, but they're this. But everything is just way too similar.
Mhm.
Similar styles, similar batteries. The other one that I know has to be because they're identical. Um, is the Yellow Way and the Jansen bikes.
Okay.
If you look at the YR20 from Yellow Way and the YR20 from Jansen, they got the same
Same thing.
nomenclature. And when you look at the bikes, the frame is the same, the battery's the same, everything's the same. So they have to
Now,
be the same company.
Fernando, we'll play a fun game right now. Let's say two bikes are identical, and let's say, for example, the price is identical. Also, which one do you pick based on what? How would you choose one over the other?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's for me, it will be based on what, like for example, the I'll use the same two bikes, the Jansen, the YR20 and the Yellowway YR20. Um, I would go with the one that has more reviews, right?
Yeah.
So I would go with the Jansen because it's been around longer and has more reviews than the Yellowway YR20.
Mhm.
But and now that I mentioned that bike, I'll go back to what you said compared to what, right? Because when I first the YR20 was my first budget e-bike. I had not tested any budget e-bikes until I got that bike. And when I got it, I thought it was a very fun bike to ride. Definitely feels like a budget e-bike, but I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it. I love it. Right? I loved it. Until I started comparing it to other budget e-bikes. And
Yeah.
then I realized it's good, but this one's much better, and this one's much better. And I mean, now you got the T8 that's much better than those bikes. So you're 1,000% right when you say compared to what? Because when I got that YR20, I was like, holy shit, this is a great little bike, especially for the price. But
Yeah.
there's other bikes that are the same price that are better bikes. You know, um,
It's like dating someone who's like 10 out of 10 crazy versus like 4 out of 10 crazy. Like
yeah,
both are crazy, and depending on which order you date them in, it's going to change your experience.
yeah, 100%. Let's let's close let's close out with these last couple of questions, which in terms of battery and mainstream capacity, right? Because right now we're seeing, at least I think maybe my perception, but I'm seeing more and more companies building and producing 60-volt bikes. Uh, Number one, do you agree with that?
Wait, what was the question?
Are more companies moving up to the 60-volt and producing more 60-volt bikes? Because I'm starting to see a lot more, even budget e-bikes are throwing out 60-volt bikes. So is that just because that's what I'm seeing from me, or are you seeing the same?
Oh no, you're 100% right. So 60 volts, slowly but surely the voltage is creeping up, for better or for worse, because there's some downsides to having a high voltage. For example, to get a specific amount of watt hours in a normal sized, reasonable pack, you have to have a certain number of battery cells in parallel. And and then you need multiple groups of those parallels to get your multiple amp hours. And the higher voltage you need, the bigger case you need for the battery. So what ends up happening is that there's a sweet spot. Like, I think the reason why so many bikes are 48 volts, 52, 36 back in the day is because it's almost like a sweet spot for voltage and capacity and having a reasonable battery size for what I would call a normie e-bike. So like class one, two, three. But yeah, for the fast stuff, yeah, the high voltage stuff it's getting up there. And I love it, man. I think it's great. Like, so we're seeing 60 volts, 72. It's man, it's a pretty big jump, but it's awesome. So
No, I agree. And so I interviewed Kyle, and dude, have you ever talked to Kyle? Do you know
oh
Kyle?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I met him out in Arizona, and I asked him a question regarding the dyno I'm getting soon, and then in terms of how to test something. Yeah, we chat here and there.
Yeah, I think that guy, dude, that interview for him with him, I was blown away. I think that guy
He seems like a very knowledgeable person.
oof, extremely.
Yeah.
So those watching, if you get a chance to see that interview, watch that interview. And I won't spoil it, but he talked about why the industry pushed a lot the 48 volt battery, and why that was the standard for so long, and why you still see companies doing 48 volt. But it was an interesting answer to that question when I asked him about that 48 volt. But I think, going forward, I think you're going to see a lot less 48 volt bikes and more 60 volts going to be more of the standard. But do you think we're going to start to, we're seeing 72 volt and we've seen a few 80 amp hours. I mean, do you think 100 amp hours is going to be, in the near future?
You mean are we still talking about voltage or amp hours?
Amp hours is what I meant.
Oh, amp
And
hours.
votes too. So I was talking about votes, but right now I'm
Oh,
talking
okay,
about,
gotcha.
yeah,
Okay, so you're just talking about the size of the battery.
right.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you were talking about voltage. Okay, my
Yeah.
mistake. So, in terms of, yeah, no, that's correct. I would want, dude, that's gonna be such a heavy battery. The number is gonna look cool on paper of a huge battery, but that's such a heavy battery. I don't even know how you would engineer I mean, it would pretty much have to have a motorcycle frame to withstand the weight of that battery. And and I think some motorcycles have huge batteries depending on the voltage. Um no, I think that's probably more suited for the specialty people like yourself who like to hook up a bunch of batteries together, and then you can crank up the amp hour number to something crazy.
And here's why I asked that question, because this is what I find interesting, right? If you look at the Anioki batteries and you compare that to the Motor Goat, like for example, the Motor Goat 50 amp hour battery, the Motor Goat 50 amp hour battery is a lot heavier than Anioki's 60, 70, even the 80 amp hour battery. Why do you think that is?
I think they use, and I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure Anioki uses pouch cells instead of the like 21700 cells. So there's just less metal in the whole container. But I think the outside has to be metal if you're going to be using pouch cells. I think it's just a different engineering for the kind of cells that are used. Um, and I do want to again bring this up. There is a bike that I'm reviewing that's advertised at 55 amp hours, and what do you think it tested at?
If it's 55, I'm going to say 50 or even 49.
36.
Whoa!
36. And so you pick up a battery and you expect it to weigh a certain amount because of the number that's on the website, and then you learn things like this, and like, okay, it makes sense why it's kind of on the lighter side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah,
it's not
yeah,
the
yeah.
Wild West. You like some. I feel bad for people who, because it's not reasonable to expect the average consumer to know all of these things. And I feel bad because it's almost like they're getting preyed upon because it's so hard to verify all this information. Um, and people just get tricked. They just look at the marketing, and they, like you said, they see someone that's excited and doing a wheelie on a bike. Be like, okay, let's buy that.
Yeah, I gotcha. Alex, that's all I got. You got any? Is there anything else you want to discuss, bring up?
No, man, that's it. Yeah, just wear your helmets, wear protection, and enjoy your e-bikes. Whatever you have, enjoy it. That's pretty much it.
All right, let's go. Let's finish off with reading some of this stuff. So, uh, um, Walter brought up a good analogy with cars, right? It's like Honda and Acura, Toyota and Lexus. You know, they're the same company, the same parts, and they're selling you. And it's funny because the Toyota and the Lexus, if you're paying a lot more money for the Lexus for basically the same freaking engine.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So the last car I had, it was this little beater. It was a 2008 Pontiac Vibe. And if anyone knows about the history of that car is essentially, besides the body, all Toyota. All Toyota parts, because they had a deal back in the day, and I think Pontiac got the better deal. But that car it's like a secret Toyota matrix, pretty much. So yeah, they even in cars, they people share parts all the time.
All right, let's see if we got anything else. I just got an Anioki AA Pro 60-volt 80 amp hour and can't wait to test it out. That's a beast of a bike. I have that bike. I love that bike. I like all Anioki bikes, but that's a big bike.
How do you feel about the brakes in that bike? Because I know they have some special system that splits the brake now.
Yeah,
What do you think of that?
I love it.
Yeah.
And they need that system on that bike because when you talk, we just talked about the weight of the bike. That 80 amp hour battery makes that bike crazy. Not just the battery; it's a dual motor bike. The freaking brake rotor is as big as a plate. The bike itself is super heavy, and I can't remember the weight, but I want to say it's like 175-pound bike, if not more than that. It's a heavy bike, and it's one of those. I almost always stay away when people say that's a motorcycle, because I think most e-bikes are not motorcycles; they're e-bikes. But this one is on that borderline.
Yeah.
It's big, it's super fast, super powerful. It has a electric motorcycle battery.
Yeah.
80 amp hours.
Amanda, you don't want a motorcycle with pedals?
No, I don't want a motorcycle with pedal. So it says right here, I need the Gaza. Yeah, I know Gaza. Yeah, brother. Can't wait for 2026 coming out. Yeah, there's Anioki is coming out with they're upgrading all their bikes now coming in the summer. I mentioned that before. Ihora is also coming out with some new versions of their Romeo. That one I'm actually excited for because I like the Romeo bike, but I don't want a 26 by 4 inch fat tire bike. But they're coming out with a 20 by 4 Romeo with mag wheels, with the same power, same specs as you got the Romeo Ultra. I'm excited for that. I like that Romeo Ultra. That's another bike that's super freaking heavy because of the 80 amp hour battery. That's another bike that hits that borderline to close to motorcycle specs. But it's just the bike is, when you add that 26 by 4 inch wheel on it, oh my God, that just makes the bike really big, really cumbersome. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of that.
Much. Is Anioki coming? Someone told me that they're coming out with a 72 volt bike.
Everybody's been asking me that question. I have specifically asked the reps, all the reps that I deal with Anioki, and they're saying yes, but not anytime soon. It's not soon. Okay. What is soon is they're more of, so for example, right now, the AQ177 only comes in a 52 volt. The A8 only has one 60 volt version, which is the one that this guy has, and I just talked about the big one, and the A9, right? So, but soon, almost all of them, all their version of their A8s will be 60-volt bikes. So the 48-volt that they currently produce are not going to be sold anymore. They're not making that one anymore. It's just going to be the 52 60-volt and then eventually the 72-volt. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. And when I say soon, definitely not before the fall, but most likely in 2027.
Okay, cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. All right. Leave us with some words of wisdom.
I think we already went over that, but I'll say it again. Wear protection of all types. Wear your helmet, and whatever bike you have, just enjoy the shit out of it. Whatever you got.
Yeah, amen to that. I will leave you with this that we talked about, or one of the lessons that I learned today at church. And I kind of know it's not new. I've heard this many times before, but you have a tendency to forget. And that is the value. And I talked about this before as well, but the value of time, right? The richest person is the person with the most time, right? The value of time is something that we can't buy. So just keep that in mind. Don't over exert yourself. Absorb Sabbath, meaning take at least a rest day, because you're never going to get today back, right? Once today leaves, you're not getting it back. So anyway, my beautiful people, love you guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, ride, hustle, repeat. See you on the next one.
See you guys.